Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be ranking the 15 roller coasters located at Kings Island in Mason, Ohio. Kings Island is one of the most special amusement parks I've ever been to. The rides lineup is stacked, the atmosphere is much better than most Six Flags parks, the food is excellent, and the ride operations are just insane. Without a time saver pass, I've pretty much never waited more than 30 minutes for a ride at this park. The setting of the park also gives its rides a lot of interesting terrain and forest interaction, which is something that's right up my alley as a nature enthusiast. Kings Island, put simply, is one of my happy places. This is the most difficult time I've had making a list so far, as the rides here are just way too good all around, and with that, let's get into it. At number 15 is the Great Pumpkin Coaster, a 1992 E&F Myler Jr. coaster with a very simple, kid-friendly layout. Me being the snob I am, I haven't even attempted to ride this ride, but it seems like a solid enough kiddie coaster. I'm confident it would rank last place even if I rode it. Not a diss, but I'm obviously too old for this one now. In 14th place is Woodstock's Air Rail, a 2001 Vekoma suspended family coaster with a simultaneously unpleasant and boring layout. I have to admit, although the Great Pumpkin Coaster is even less thrilling, I think this coaster is probably worse. There is virtually no thrill and the ride shakes the entire duration. I wouldn't mind it if a newer generation Vekoma family suspended coaster replaced it, to be honest. It's not the worst thing I've been on, but it's definitely a skippable ride. At number 13 is Woodstock Express. Woodstock Express is a 1972 Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Junior wooden coaster with a simple figure 8 layout. I feel bad putting this ride low on my list because it's actually pretty fun for such a small ride. Out of all the kiddie coasters here, I think this one easily has the most bite to it. At number 12 is Invertigo, a 1999 Vekoma inverted boomerang. I'm sure this placement seems low, but I'm not really about this ride type. Although this particular model is rarer than other boomerangs, I think I just find the boomerang style to be a bit redundant overall at this point. Add to that the uncomfortable shake this ride has and the overwhelmingly strong positive Gs. It's just not my favorite type of experience. Either way, it definitely provides a good bit of thrill and has its historical significance. In 11th place is Snoopy's Soapbox Racers, a 2024 Vekoma family boomerang. Not counting the new dark ride which just opened, Snoopy's Soapbox Racers is the newest roller coaster in the park, and you can tell. Like most other family boomerangs, it climbs up the lift hill backwards before sending you down through a boomerang layout. On the other end, you briefly climb up a spike, then traverse the layout backwards. I think this ride looks fantastic, and the little bit of theming they added went a long way. It's not very tall or fast, but it's definitely the most well-presented tame coaster in the park, and I find it more comfortable than Invertigo. Next up in 10th place is Queen City Stunt Coaster, a 2005 Premier Rides LAM launch coaster. I'm a bit divided on this one because the launch at the beginning is decently punchy and fun, but the tight helix shortly after is almost too much. The rest of the ride is okay, but a bit meandery for me. I think the indoor section is probably the next best part, though a little bit slow. At the very least, the fire effects have always worked when I've ridden it. I usually skip this ride, but it's not bad at all. At number 9 is Flight of Fear. Flight of Fear is a 1996 Premier Rides indoor launched coaster with some decent looking theming and 4 inversions. It's a bit rough at times. It slows down dramatically midway through. Otherwise, it's actually pretty fun and has a decent launch and theming. This is another ride I usually skip, especially because the line gets incredibly long, but it's worth trying at least once. In 8th place is The Racer, a 1972 Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters wooden racing coaster with 2 identical sides. One of my favorite things about The Racer is the fact that it always races, something I haven't been able to say about American Eagle at Six Flags Great America until maybe this year. I just need to jump in and make a correction because I did get a racing ride on American Eagle last week, so I apologize for the slander. Love that ride, no shade intended. There's a blue side and red side, and every single time you ride it, both trains run at the same time. While the racing aspect of the ride doesn't add a ton in terms of fun for me, I love the layout of the ride. It's quite simple, but the airtime is better than you expect for a ride this old, and I've had rides on it that are almost as smooth as Mystic Timbers. They've really taken care of this ride, and I look forward to rewriting it every time I go. At number 7 is Banshee, a huge 2014 B&M invert. This ranking is low, I know. I don't consider Banshee to be top 5 material at this park, so I just need to cut in and say that I got another ride on Banshee this week and I thought it was great. There was no shaking. The positive Gs were perfectly fine with me. It wasn't overwhelming. I had a great time on it, and if I were to go back and redo this list, I would probably rank Banshee at number 5. I'm not huge on inverts in general, but this one is especially hard for me to get behind because it's just overly intense. The positive Gs you experience leave me pretty exhausted every time, and it probably wouldn't be so bad if the ride didn't vigorously shake the entire cycle. It isn't a painful ride whatsoever, but it does kind of take away from the comfort of the overall experience. experience. I'm willing to acknowledge that Banshee's layout is quite the spectacle. It has 7 inversions, has a beautiful purple and blue color scheme, and has giant sweeping elements that look incredible from off-ride. I think out of all the coasters at this park, Banshee might be the most impressive to look at, but it's not one of my favorites to ride. I'm giving it some extra points because objectively, it is a very thrilling ride with a great layout. At number 6 is Adventure Express, a 1991 Aerodynamics mine train coaster. Yeah, I know, putting this ride above Banshee is kind of insane, but I really don't mind the jankiness of this ride. It does throw you around quite a bit, but I don't really find it to be painful. I've been on a lot of arrows at this point, so maybe I'm just used to how they ride. Either way, this ride is much faster than you expect, and the theming looks fantastic. The setting is also really nice with a few tunnels and cool terrain interaction. There's something special about this ride that's hard to put into words. It has an old school feel to it that I really enjoy. It is a little bit weird how the final moment is a lift hill that leads back into the station, but there are many terrain coasters that do this, so it doesn't bother me. Plus, like the rest of the ride, that lift hill is heavily themed. In 5th place is the Bat, a 1993 aerodynamic suspended roller coaster. I've heard a lot of criticism about this ride, and I'm not really sure why. Every time I've ridden it, it's much more thrilling than I remember. The cars are suspended from the track and swing back and forth with quite a bit of whip throughout the ride. The ride holds good speed all the way through, and some of the turns provide some strong forces. I find the ride to be more comfortable than pretty much all other aero rides. The setting is also a huge plus. It's secluded very far away from the rest of the rides in the park, and it's a lot of fun whizzing past all the trees. I'm not really sure why this ride gets hate. I think it's the best supporting coaster in the park, and it's also a rare ride type, which just adds to its coolness. In 4th place is the Beast. The Beast is a 1979 wooden roller coaster which was built by Kings Island Engineering. I'll try to keep this brief because there's a lot to be said about the Beast. It's legendary for all the right reasons. There are 2 specific things about the Beast that make it stand out: its length and its setting in the woods. The Beast is the longest wooden roller coaster in the world by track length, and it really feels that way. The feeling of riding through the woods is surreal to say the least. If you thought the Bat was secluded, the Beast takes that to a whole new level. Some parts of the track are sandwiched between so many trees that it almost feels like you're not even in the park anymore, or that you'll derail at any given moment. There are several tunnels throughout, which especially add to the experience at night, and boy, night rides are a trippy experience to say the least. There's a super intense helix after the second lift hill that really isn't like any other element in the world. The drop is basically like a ramp that allows you to slowly accumulate speed as you barrel towards the bottom, and then you're suddenly hit with intense positive Gs as you curve into the helix. I will say this ride is very temperamental. Some rides feel very smooth and others shake me around so bad that I have a headache. I'm usually all about smoothness, but for this ride, sometimes I overlook it because the Beast is such a unique one that I have a soft spot for. At number 3 is Mystic Timbers. Mystic Timbers is a 2017 GCI Woody with a surprisingly fast and whippy layout. I really struggled not to put this ride in 1st place because for a long time it was my favorite at the park. In fact, this was one of the first bigger coasters I rode, and it instantly made me fall in love with high thrill rides. It's not the most intense thing out there, but that's what I love about it. The main 2 things it has going for it are speed and airtime. The airtime is virtually non-stop. Every hill, bigger or smaller, tries to eject you from the seat. The speed does die out a tad bit towards the end, but for the most part, the entire thing is pretty dang fast for a ride that's just barely over 100 feet tall. A lot of people complain about the shed, which is really just a low-budget 80s horror-themed brake run at the end of the ride. It doesn't add a lot to the ride experience, but I actually think it gives the ride a bit more personality in a way that I enjoy. This ride is also the smoothest wooden roller coaster I've ever been on. Not one single moment hurts or falters even a little bit. I would rank this ride 1st place, especially for re-rideability, but I have grown to prefer taller rides more. Either way, you can count on me riding Mystic Timbers at least 10 times, if not more, anytime I visit Kings Island. In 2nd place is Diamondback, a 2009 B&M hypercoaster. Diamondback, in my opinion, is the scariest ride in this park. Even though Orion is taller, there's something about Diamondback's staggered seating and slow crawl over the top of the lift hill that gets me a little worked up every time. Also, it slows down a lot at the top of each hill to remind you how high up you are, while Orion does not. The ride is 230 feet tall with a 215-foot drop, and from there, it's a non-stop sequence of either great or good airtime moments. I think the ride can be a little bit too tame in the second half sometimes, but either way, I love the setting through the woods and the splashdown section at the end. Diamondback is one of the most aesthetically pleasing rides in the park, which adds more than you might think to the overall experience. I also don't really feel the rattle on this ride. I can kind of hear it sometimes, but it's never felt uncomfortable in the slightest to me. A back row ride on this is a must. You get yanked over the top of the drop pretty hard, and actually get a little bit wet during the splashdown. I think this one and Mystic Timbers are kind of neck and neck for me. I only slightly prefer Diamondback because, again, I'm a sucker for any ride that's at least 200 feet tall. And lastly, in first place is none other than Orion. Orion is a 2020 B&M Giga, although many people call it a hypercoaster because the ride height is only 287 feet while the drop is 300. Many people also criticize this ride for being too short or not really having an interesting layout. And while I can see that, I'm in the camp who thinks this ride is much better than people say. The first drop is breathtaking. The wave turn that follows, while it doesn't give great airtime, is still profiled at a fun and interesting angle. The turnaround isn't special by any means, but I actually like the way that it sits so high off the ground. To me, that choice is a bit unusual and it works. The following speed hill gives probably the best airtime moment in the entire park. The larger camelback after is also pretty great. The helix is super intense and often makes me gray out. Finally, there's a quick pop of sideways airtime before you enter the brakes that's easily my favorite moment of the ride. I didn't expect it the first time I rode, so it was a nice surprise. I prefer this ride in the front row because you can really feel the wind in your face, and I rank it above Diamondback because while Diamondback is longer and has more airtime, I prefer speed. Orion's sense of speed is definitely unmatched at Kings Island. It's glass smooth, fast, tall, and has a beautiful color scheme and some nice theming in the queue. I can't really ask for much more, so it's easily my number one in the park. And with that, we have reached the end of my list. I'm dying to go back to this park, and I may try to get back to Ohio this year, not only to vlog another visit to Kings Island, but to vlog my first ever visit to Cedar Point. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing because it helps me in my mission to get on more rides and make more content like this. Thanks for watching.